Well, hello, visitors to and denizens of the YouTubeverse. I'm John, your social hermit in the woods, and in this video, I'm going to show you how I make my own favorite recipe, cherry almond ice cream, using a hand crank ice cream maker. So stick around. So ice cream is one of those things that's really easy to get up here about half the year. If it's minus 20 out, I can drive in to the grocery store 45 minutes away. I can get ice cream, put it in the back of the truck, bring it here, and just leave it outside. It's fine. But that's not usually when you want ice cream. And if I try to do it in the middle of summer when it can get mid 30s, it can even reach 40 Celsius here sometimes. That's a pretty long trip to have it survive without getting at least a little bit mushy. So, an easier thing to do, and actually I like the product better than most of what I can buy, is to go ahead and buy the ingredients, the milk and the cream, the things I'm going to go through, and then I can keep those on hand for, up to a week or 2 weeks. And then when I have a craving, I can go and make a batch. So that's what I'm going to do today, and I'll show you my recipe. So it's really pretty simple. The first step is we're going to mix together 3 cups of cream. I'm going to use a full whipping cream here. You can probably get by with a lower fat content, like a half and half, but the texture won't be quite the same. So 3 cups of cream. And I measure the cream first because the milk is a little bit thinner and will help rinse out the measuring cup. Cup and a half of milk. I'm using 2% milk here. Heat that with occasional whisking until it just kind of starts to froth. You don't want to scald it, so we're going to turn the heat down a bit there. We'll take our time here. While that's heating, I'm going to separate off 4 egg yolks. So hopefully I can do this without too much of a disaster on camera. There we go. We'll set those egg whites aside and use them for breakfast tomorrow. Keep an eye on your milk and cream while this is going on. Give it a stir every minute or so to keep it from scalding on. Now, to our 4 egg yolks, or egg mostly yolks, we're going to add a cup and a half of icing sugar. And icing sugar is important to use for this. You could try to do it with regular sugar, but I think it'd be really hard to get it to blend in very well. So, and we're going to want a half a cup of black cherry juice. This is something that is actually pretty common in stores up here, but you could use regular cherry juice. I did see a black cherry cranberry juice blend. That might work well too. I don't know. Haven't tried it. But here we go. Half cup of black cherry juice. When your milk and cream mixture starts to get a little bit of froth on the top, you're ready to mix in the sugar, egg yolk, and cherry juice. So pour that in while whisking. Keep the heat on, and we're going to go ahead and stir that for about another 6 or 8 minutes, essentially making a custard here. Okay, once that's had that kind of 6 to 8 minutes, and you'll see it's foaming up again on the top, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take it off the heat, give it a stir. Now, at this point, you'd like to add, well, ideally, you'd like to have dried cherries. I have never been able to find dried cherries when I want to do this, so I cheat and I use craisins, dried cranberries. Plain ones work just fine. Right here, these are actually, say, infused with cherry juice. I figured probably even a better simulacrum here. But either way, you want a half a cup of those. Drop those in. And then you want 1 teaspoon each of vanilla extract and almond extract. Notice you're adding those now as opposed to before the heating because they're quite volatile. And if you added them earlier, you'd evaporate off a lot of the flavor. So, okay, give that a stir. It'll actually should smell really good. You'll smell the vanilla and the almond and the cherry all right now. Put the lid back on that. Now you want this to cool for several hours. It's going to make things a lot easier on your ice cream maker. So you take this and you slip it into your fridge and give it a couple of hours. Once that's cool, we'll come back and we'll do the next step. Incidentally, I forgot to mention, but of course, if you had some slivered almonds, you could throw some of those in there too. I personally like it with just the cherries as the chunks. I think the almonds would be a little crunchy and hard. Don't normally do them, so I just use almond extract. But experiment. I'm sure it's delicious that way too. Once your ice cream mix is chilled, we're ready for the actual churning part. And the key here with these hand crank ice cream makers is this double-walled insert, which is filled with some kind of chilling agent, probably something like sodium acetate solution. And you put that in the freezer for a couple of hours before you're going to make ice cream. So it's going to be what does the freezing. So you take that, you drop it down into your thing. This particular one is a Danvier model. As with all my things, I bought this myself. Not getting paid to represent this. My thoughts are purely my own observations of what I happen to have. So let's take the custard and put it in there. So we have our nicely chilled custard here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pour this in without trying to make too much of a mess. Okay, next you have your beater blade, which fits in. There's a divot on the bottom, which fits on a central kind of pivot point. The lid goes on over that and locks in place. And then your hand crank goes on. And now all you do, you give this a few cranks. One of the biggest mistakes you can make with these is actually over cranking it. It will slow down the freezing process and it won't help. What you want to do is let this chill and start to freeze up, which obviously it'll do from the outside in. But if you just let it kind of do that, it will end up with a frozen outside with kind of big chunky ice crystals and a not frozen inside. And your craisins, your dried cherry surrogates, will probably mostly fall to the bottom and stuff. So what you want to do is you want to break up the frozen zone along the edge and mix that into the middle. But really, you give it 1 or 2 cranks, you wait a couple of minutes, you come back, you give it 1 or 2 cranks, let it sit for another 4 or 5 minutes, and you can continue that process until you get a uniform, creamy texture. So bear with me and we'll carry on with doing that for the next little while. After about 10 or 15 minutes, you should definitely be feeling a little bit of resistance when you try to stir. And I don't know if you can see, I'll bring the camera up here, but little chunks of what is clearly ice cream are starting to form. There we go. That's starting to look like ice cream now. We're getting close to the end. When you get to a uniform texture reminiscent of soft serve ice cream, that's kind of about as far as you're going to get. And it's going to be time to take the paddle out and return this whole thing to the freezer for the final hardening step. Okay, so that's been about 30 minutes. The time, of course, varies a little bit depending on how cold your mixture was that you poured in there. The colder it is, the faster that goes. It is okay to leave that custard mix in the fridge overnight, even if you want to make this really quick, or at least make the freezing part of it really quick. So, but we're nice and uniform there. That's about as far as you're going to want to go here. So now we do the final stage. Take the handle back out. unlock the lid, and we're going to try to worm out and scrape off the almost ice cream goodness from the stirring paddle. Put the lid back on, and at least on mine, then the central cap out of your stirring handle comes out and fits in there. It doesn't fit tightly, but it still gives it an air seal. Now you take this and put it back in the freezer. Um, Depending on how firm you want the ice cream, anything from a half an hour to overnight. We're going to leave it a while, and then we'll scoop some out and take a look at the final product. Okay, now that that's had some time to solidify up a little bit more, let's check the final product. Look at that. Perfect texture, nice big chunks of our craisins in there, cherry surrogates. And then the real test that matters. How does it taste? That is good. This is actually probably my all-time favorite ice cream, which makes it great that I can make it myself. Hopefully you found that interesting. Maybe encourages you to try something like that. Until next time, this is John, your social hermit in the woods, saying goodbye.